there's well-known Hakhamim, as you know, of Ol Sfarad, which are Harambam, Ibn Ezra, the Rif, Yehuda Halevi, among others. Who are some of the other Sephardic Hakhamim who get less fanfare but deserve a lot more attention, in your opinion, and why?
Well, you have Don Yitzhak Abarbanel, who has his own perush on the Torah, but he is also known as a diplomat, as a politician. He doesn't get, I think, enough recognition in his erudition, first of Torah and also of Avodah, of Melacha, in that sense. I think before we start anything about Sephardic Judaism or Sephardic Hakhamim, we ought to speak of Hasdai ibn Shaprut, who is believed to be kind of the first one to open up that door to Jewish communities in Spain, and to establish a yeshivot, centers of learning, of Hakhamim in training, but yet at the same time was involved in the daily life of Spain. Under Abdul Rahman, the Caliph Abdul Rahman, he started being his advisor, then his physician, then his Ministry of Finance, then he became his foreign minister and a minister of war, and then to his son also later on. And so Hasdai ibn Shaprut, I think he's not given much recognition, at least amongst the masses. Yeah, and in academic circles, yes, of course he's known, but amongst the masses, many people don't know who he is. He is the one who really communicated with the kingdom of Khazar. He is the one who through him we understand that story is not a legend. It's a true history. He communicated. There are letters between him and King Joseph of Khazar, exchanging letters back and forth as to their Judaism, which tribe they were. It's amazing because Hasdai ibn Shaprut, in his first letter of introduction, he thought that the Khazars were Malchei Yehuda, the descendant of the tribe of Judah, because he believed that there cannot be no other king but from the tribe of Judah. And then when King Joseph answered him, no, we are not of any tribe. We were converted. We were converted. And for now, over 100 and something years, 150 years at that time. So Hasdai ibn Shaprut was a great personality that we ought to start the study of Sephardic studies, or Sephardic Hakhamim, or the Sephardic way of life, so to speak, through Hasdai ibn Shaprut. He's the first one that opened up that door, and those centuries of known as the golden centuries. Of course, we have also Shlomo ibn Gabirol, very famous poet. Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, he gets something, but maybe not like the rest. We have Rabbi Shlomo ibn Ezra, the father of Rabbi Abraham ibn Ezra. I'll tell you, in one of my trips that I took to Spain, I led a group of over 52 people, Sephardim and Ashkenazim, to study, to show them basically the Sephardic heritage. And we visited so many cities in Spain, from Seville to Granada to Segovia to Cordova to Toledo to everywhere that there was a Sephardic presence and Sephardic Hacham. When we would arrive at the city, I would read the name of the Hakhamim that lived there and some of their contribution. In Cordoba, I went to a library. Now, in many of these major cities, the Spanish government established an institution called Casa Sepharad, the House of Sepharad, because they want to kind of renew that heritage. They want the people to know about them. And I'm sure they also wanted some tourism to come and visit. And so I entered into one of those Casa Sepharad, and I went to the library to see what kind of books they have. And I found a book that is very, very interesting. And that book is called Rabbinos Escritores. Now, Rabbinos Escritores, meaning rabbis and scholars. Rabbis and scholars. It was an encyclopedia written by, and by the way, it is being sold for reprint by Amazon, believe it or not. Now, when I was there, I had no idea about that, but recently I searched to see, and I saw that they are. It's called Rabbinos y Escritores. It's a 2-volume encyclopedia. I saw the original books written by Dr. Ramirez Hernandez a Converso in 1721. And it is all about rabbis and scholars, which means rabbis that were scholars in secular studies. So any rabbi that published in Judaism and also published in secular studies, whatever their profession is, either medicine or cartography or finance or ministry, whatever that profession they had, in addition of being Hakhamim, they were included in that encyclopedia. Wow. And Harambam, with all his greatness, and maybe he is the leader of all, but there were almost 1,000 like him in that encyclopedia, starting from Hasdai ibn Shaprut all the way to Yitzhak Abarbanel, and slightly after that. It was a 600-year compilation of Hakhamim that, again, published in whatever the area of expertise in Judaism. It's either Parshanut, Halacha, philosophy, Talmud, poetry, literature, whatever it was. And also they published in their secular endeavor that they had. So I approximated, and each one had his biography, his name, of course, his biography, and also discussion some of their works that they published. And that's how, so I estimated almost 1,000 of those in that encyclopedia of 2 volumes. Now, we're talking about 1,000 people in a period of 600 years. So that's, we're talking about 1.4 sage per year, right? You have 600 years, 1,000 people, you have like 1.4 sage per year. Now you might think, oh, that's nothing, 1 point. There hasn't been a period in history as equal as that, where you have Hakhamim. That's why they are really Hakhamim sages, yet published in their Jewish area, and yet at the same time published in the secular endeavor that they had. There is no equal in history, not equal at all. And we're talking about Hakhamim, we're not talking about just regular Jews. So once I was speaking about that, and somebody said, hey, but Rabbi, you know, the United States, we have great Jewish scholars and academicians and scientists and politicians. I said, yeah, you're right. I said, but I want you to start counting with your fingers. How many of those, they know that they are Jewish, or they admit that they are Jewish? Second question, how many of those, even that they know that they are Jewish, they practice Judaism? Right. Next, how many of those are published also in Judaism? Next, how many of those are even rabbis? I said, if you calculate, if the hundreds or thousands of those Jewish scientists, politicians, businessmen, whatever it is, you probably come down to less than 2 hands, wow. Less than 10 people that are published in they're rabbis, published in Torah and whatever other profession they have, and they're published in that. And you know, less than 10 in a period of 400 years since the United States existence. You know, even as a New Amsterdam, even as before the independence.
And what do you attribute that to? Because obviously that's not happening again. It's not happening anymore. What changed? Why is that not occurring again?
Well, again, unfortunately, because most of the Jews that are scientists or academicians in the United States followed basically the European model of the Jewish community. And let me explain that for a second. In Spain, you could be a rabbi, you could be a Jew, a fully knowledgeable Jew, learned, observant Jew, and yet at the same time, you could be any other profession that you wanted. That was not frowned upon. That was, in fact, encouraged. That was something, you don't have to leave Judaism to become a physician. You don't have to, in fact, as a Jew, being a physician is fulfillment also of Jewish norms of helping the other, right? Of the Chovat Lerapot. If you have the ability, then you should, to heal. And any other profession, it was not frowned upon. It was not, spoken under the table. It was not anybody who became any other profession in addition to their Torah learning. It was not ostracized. It was not excommunicated. It was not looked down upon. It was encouraged. In fact, the more active in society that you were, that at the same time you had yirat shamayim, you had awe and reverence of heaven, and you keep the Torah and you learn Torah and you study it and you teach it, the more respected you were. That was something encouraged. In contradistinction, the Jews in Europe, our Ashkenazi brothers, unfortunately, they lived under a terrible fear all the time. And so they isolated themselves into shtetls, into small little towns, or they were forcibly isolated, ghettoized, so to speak, by the Christian monarchs at that time. And for a Jew to learn a profession outside of Torah, it was first frowned upon by the Jewish community, and two, they were not allowed to do it by the non-Jewish community. And so for a Jew to become a physician or to become whatever other profession they wanted, they had kind of to leave the community to be able to do so. And so when that Jew left the community itself, first of all, rejected them. They excommunicated them because they left the community to study other than Torah. And the powers to be, the Christian monarchs around them, the Christian society around them, also isolated them because they were Jewish and they could not study unless they shed their Judaism. And so that's why you have the period of the Enlightenment, the Haskalah. Many frowned upon them because many of those Jews that left the community, they had to shed their Judaism. What happened was when they wanted to come back, because either they missed Judaism or they missed their family or they missed their people, when they wanted to come, and many of them wanted to come back, the doors were shut for them from the community. So the community rejected them also. And so those people, unfortunately, were left to get lost among them. And many of them assimilated, got lost. And in fact, that's how Reform Judaism began. When they were not accepted in the main community and they wanted to do something Jewish, they wanted to feel Jewish, but they also wanted to feel not the Judaism that they had in the small shtetl, small little town. They wanted to have a Judaism that is acceptable amongst the other people. Those problems, those societal problems did not exist in Spain. And that's why you had in Spain Hakhamim, sages, that they were published in Judaism, but yet at the same time they had a secular endeavor, secular profession, and they published in it. And as I said, it was a sense of honor to have that, and not a sense of shame that it was in Europe. Now, the Jews in the United States, the early Jews that were Sephardim, they maintained that path of Sephardic understanding. You have Hacham Sabato Morey, Rabbi Dr. Sabato Morey, who was a rabbi and a doctor also. You have several of those early Sephardim who maintained those duality of profession, being a Hacham, published, and also a secular endeavor. Where the Ashkenazi Jews, when they came, they carried with them that lifestyle of Europe, where you are either a Jew and dedicated to Torah study, or if you want to dedicate yourself to a secular study, you are shunned by the community and you're outside. And that's why most of the scientists that we have today, Jews, academics, scientists, politicians, they barely know that they are Jewish, or they hide it, or they're not proud of it, or they don't know anything about Judaism. It is only in the last 100 years, with the establishment of Yeshiva University as an institution that says, no, it is okay to be a doctor and a religious Jew. It's okay to be a lawyer and a religious Jew. And that's basically the Sephardic model of Judaism, that you're starting to have some of those Hakhamim that at the same time have excel in secular studies and secular profession.
Yeah, and actually my Ashkenazi friends, they don't understand that we don't come from a world of sectarianism. Like in my community, we pray together based on our not on our hashkafa, which most other communities do. We're united based on our heritage. So in the row that I sit in shul, I have, a guy who's black hat and a guy who drives to synagogue. And we're praying together and we're friends and it's normal. And in their world, that doesn't really exist. So, we don't have Reform Sephardic communities. So I think it's an important distinction to make. And hopefully, the Sephardic tradition will carry on and influence the Ashkenazi community a little bit more, which hasn't really happened in the last few hundred years. But
right. It's true. And that's why they have divided into denominations, because they have shunned each other. If you're not exactly you observe Judaism the way they are, then you are shunned. You don't belong to us, and therefore they have not allowed these Jews that went out of the community and they wanted to come back to the community to live as Jews. They were shunned. They were excommunicated. That they forced them, in a sense, to create Reform Judaism. This is, of course, it's a very simple explanation, but these are the essence and the principal issues that really developed into these denominations.